Welcome to session 4 and the final session of Growth Hacks, the 12 strategies for doubling your profits right now. In this session, we'll be covering the hows and whys of raising your prices or fees, how precise targeting or list segmentation can give you exponential growth, and the strategy I like to call the touch me baby strategy. Okay, so Dan, in the Growth Hacks, so what we want to talk about here is today, let me go over here to my notes here so I can get right on here. So let's talk about raising prices, because this is a nice growth hack and it's really not that difficult to do.
Look, it's the easiest one.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple.
And again, it by itself, you're probably not going to double. You're certainly not going to double revenue.
Right.
You may double profits, though.
Right, which is the promise of this. And by the way, if you use all of these...
Well,
right,
yeah.
Right.
But, so, first of all, most businesses are underpriced at least somewhere. Mm-hmm. Right? They may not be overall underpriced, but they're at least underpriced on something or some things to somebody, right? And the main reason for that is that they are either just skittish and squeamish and timid and fearful, and you know, Zig said timid salesmen have skinny kids.
Yeah.
So, or they pay too much attention to industry norms, formulaic pricing, cost me X, multiplied by 2.3, add $1, that's the price it should sell for. Their competition, you know, they're not really effective at selling in a vacuum. They may fear it because they have crappy marketing and sales skills. And the answer to that, by the way, is go fix your marketing and your sales skills, right? Don't settle for continually being poorly compensated. They have crappy deliverables. The answer to that, fix your deliverables. You know, well, I don't dare charge more because the place isn't clean and my people are nasty and well, fix that, you know. Or they're not doing the math right. So they fear, okay, if I raise my price, I'm gonna lose some customers, and maybe you will. But if you run some math on that, you will find you can lose 10%, 20% of your customers, and with a 30% price increase, and look at what happens to you, right?
Sure.
So going and raising the price, particularly if you can create an environment in which you can test it, okay, is the fastest and easiest path to increasing profits in a business. So there's a theory that a lot of people have that, I sell more units at a lower price, right? And I'll sell less units at a higher price.
Right.
And generally, broadly, yes, it's true.
Right.
Right? But narrowly, it often isn't.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, you'll sell more cars at 50,000 than at 200,000.
Right.
But 50 to 59,
Right.
50 to 62, probably not.
Right.
Probably not. Certainly not enough to sacrifice that extra $12,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Another myth that people have, which is, well, people are only shopping for the lowest price. We hear this a lot. My customers, my clients, my patients want the lowest price. I was just talking to my wife, who's getting into real estate, trying to be a real estate agent, and actually, you know, selling some homes and doing that. But she's like lamenting the fact that real estate agents in our area are cutting commissions. They're cutting commissions, and she doesn't want to cut commissions. And she's like, everybody though is going to go with the person that's doing it for 1%. Why? So talk to Karen for me.
The only so, first of all, it's only a max of 15% of people who automatically, constantly, and consistently buy by price. The overwhelming majority of them do so because they have no alternative. Right? So, single mom, deadbeat dad, 3 kids, crappy job, she's buying whatever soup's on sale because she has no choice.
Right.
Right? And if she has to sell her house 4 steps ahead of foreclosure, she's listing with whoever will charge her the least to do it.
Right.
She's under so much economic duress. All of her decisions are driven by price. It's less than 15% of the population, right? Or of any population you want to put together. Chinese restaurant owners in Sheboygan.
Right.
Okay, it's 15% of them who are under that kind of pressure and have to behave in that way. The rest of the people behave situationally. And when they buy the cheapest of whatever is being offered to them, they do so in the absence of persuasive information about comparative superiority. Okay? So if we walk in, we were talking about this jacket earlier, which I should never have bought. Right? So, by the way, anytime I try and use a coupon, Armageddon ensues. You don't even want to be in the same state with me when I try and use a coupon. But I should never buy anything on sale either.
Right.
So if you walk into a store and there's two jackets and they appear to be identical to you, and you feel them and they feel identical,
You're gonna buy that.
and you try them
Right.
on and they feel identical when you put them on,
Right.
and one's $199 and one's $499, unless you're just goofy,
Right.
you're buying the $199.
Right.
Somebody has to say to you, let me explain the difference in the way these things are made.
Right.
Right? And so somebody has to say, in her case, by the way, I hope she's paying attention to Procter and
Yeah, she is. I mean, I'm picking on
Luther,
her,
our
but this
titanium
was like
member,
a 2-second conversation.
So
Yeah.
somebody has to say, you can find any number of real estate agents who will discount commissions, right? And some will discount more than others, right? You will find most won't charge you a listing fee, only rebated out of the commission. However, the way I do business is X, and here's why that's actually the better bargain, right?
Yeah.
So, and when people say, so I used to get a lot if I did hot seats at Joe's for carpet cleaners. Everybody in my town buys on price, right? If I come to visit, right, we better only find Walmart and dollar stores. If there is any other retail store in your town, I'm kicking your ass, right? And we better only see Kias. If there's any other car on the road, parked in a driveway anywhere in your city, I'm taking a baseball bat and beating your head to a bloody pulp, right? Because you're full of crap. When we go to the grocery store, there better only be the house brand.
Right.
There better be no Progresso soups in the aisle.
Right.
All right? There better be the house brand of soup, private label, that's it, not even Campbell's. Right? Because otherwise people are standing there and they are making a choice to pay a higher price than is right in front of them for a can of soup. Right? And there isn't even a salesperson there explaining it to them. Right? So it's all nonsense. It's just not true. It's not how people behave, except in the absence of persuasive information about comparative superiority.
Sure. So if you're viewed as a commodity, which is what the whole GKIC marketing is all about, so making sure that you're not viewed as a commodity, that you're viewed as an authority, a celebrity, expert, all that kind of stuff. Right. They're going to, I mean, it's just crazy. You know, on the Brass Ball Seminar that we're actually giving away to the first 200 people who invest in growth hacks, you talk about price. You talk about price a lot and about how...
Price and fee.
Price and fee. Talk a little bit about that.
And really the same thing applies to terms.
Sure.
To how you do business with me.
Okay.
And so again, in real estate, we have real estate agents charging a listing fee.
Sure.
Okay. And
which they should.
Of course they should.
Right.
And they're right up against, the average person now interviews 5 before they list a house. So they trot them in and out over 5 evenings or, you know, whatever, right? And so the person following my recommendation probably going to be the only one sitting there saying it's $997 to sign up, right?
Right.
Everybody else is definitely not saying that.
Right.
And they're immediately, I'll cut my commission, they're doing that. So how does this person even survive, right? I mean, first of all, they have to be able to maintain a straight face and hold their testicles in place if they're a male while they quote it. And that's really what we talked about,
Yeah.
you know, a lot in that classic seminar.
Yeah.
Is you have to know your worth. You have to have deal flow. You have to know there's another bus coming,
Right.
right? You have to be able to make a persuasive argument of comparative superiority. You can freely acknowledge. I always have. When I was, you know, 8, 10,000 to write a campaign for somebody, there were people at 500.
Right.
You
Sure.
know, now that I'm at 50 to 200,000, there's a lot of lower priced copywriters. And if you really don't have the ability to pay, the size and scope of your opportunity is inappropriate for me, I will be happy to recommend some. They're not me.
Right.
Okay? They may be serviceable though.
Right.
They're competent, they're reliable. Let me give you some names.
Right.
And more often than not, by the way, that turns.
Makes them want you even more.
Of course.
Right.
I mean, so price, fee, compensation, whatever compensation is in your business, is more dictated by you than by competition. Okay? First of all, most competitors are terrible. They're lousy at advertising. They're lousy at marketing. They're lousy at sales. And they're more scared of price than you probably will ever be. So there's a lot of them, but they're all horrible.
Right.
Right? You should be able to kick their butts.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, and secondly, the person really doesn't know. They can't judge comparative superiority.
Right.
So you get to control that criteria.
Sure.
And if you control the criteria properly, higher price makes sense, and you win with 85% of the consumers.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty details. How does somebody go about raising prices? Is there a formula? And the follow-up question to that one is, which we get all the time, well, how do I deal with my current customers, clients, or patients if I'm raising the price?
So there's two approaches, big approaches to raising price.
Okay.
One is the cowardly lion approach, which is I'm going to do it, right? But I'm worried about it. So you create tiers and choices, right? So that, and upgrade opportunities, so people choose the higher price, right? If a significant majority of them are choosing the higher price, now you should be emboldened to throw away the low one.
Right.
Take the one you created, make it the base, create a new premium tier.
Right.
Okay. So that's the cowardly approach, but at least you're in motion.
Right.
Right? The other approach is you just do it. I mean, you just raise your prices. End of story.
Right.
Right? As to the existent customers and clients, there may be reasons to grandfather some or all.
Okay.
Okay? Even I have a few grandfathered clients who would not, under any circumstances, pay my current fees. They've been with me for a very long time, and they have other value to me.
Sure.
They're grandfathered. You can count them right here and have a finger left over to do tea.
Okay.
But you may grandfather some. You may grandfather all. Right? You can take the good news, bad news story approach to them, which is bad news, we're raising these prices. Good news, we're going to raise them on all the new ones, and we're not going to raise them on you for 6 months. So buy as much shit as you can during the next 6 months, right? Good news, when we do raise them, we're adding these perks.
Okay.
And we now we don't do an apples to oranges price range.
Right. I got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
We don't do an apples to apples price range. We do an apples to oranges price range.
Right.
Excuse me, right? And the third thing you can do is you can ascend and eliminate. So you force ascend them, and then some people refuse.
Yeah. And again, so going to giving a personal example, my doctor decided that he wanted a concierge practice. Right. And it was real simple. I'm raising my prices. Here's what it's going to be. You're going to pay $2,000 a year.
But I'm only keeping X number of you.
I'm only keeping X number of you, and
See
that's
that-
it.
See, that's a send
Yep.
and sacrifice,
Yep.
right?
And
And believe me, when there were unlimited seats, and there's now only, what did he tell you, 200?
yep, 200.
Yeah. He probably went to VIP, is who he probably went to.
He did, and then dropped them as just doing
Dropped
it on
them
his
as
own.
doing it
Yeah,
on
yeah,
his own.
yeah,
Yeah.
Got the model. Yeah.
Yeah. So when there was unlimited, and now there's only 200, and people have been in that office and seen 30 there at a time.
Right.
They can figure this out, right?
Right.
And so 200 will ascend. There's no ascend. It's math, by the way.
Yeah.
The VIP says, how many you got? Right? How many you got have been in 3 or more times this year?
Right.
Right? Boom. We know what we could ascend.
Right. Yeah.
And here's what that does to you mathematically and financially. And the guy says, oh, I can take care of 200 patients
Right.
and make the same amount of money I was taking care of 3,000 people.
Yep.
And I can have half the staff,
Right.
and I can take Fridays off, and I can, what
what's
don't I
wrong
like
with-
about this picture?
Yeah. Well, and you get money up front. And he's getting $2,000 to be part of his practice. Okay, again, so the reason I brought that up is you've got to be thinking about how you can't just immediately, because I can see a doctor saying, well, I can't do that.
I can't do it. My patients would never do it.
Right.
Won't work in my community.
Yeah.
It won't work for it's all here.
Right, yeah. I
It
mean,
is all here.
the other thing that you said was important, though, when raising prices, you mentioned, hey, you got to explain the benefits of it as well. Because if he didn't explain the benefits of it to me, if he says, I'm just raising my prices, now there's 200 people, so you're never going to have to wait in the waiting room ever. If your appointment's at 9 o'clock, you're going to be in at 9 o'clock. If something's wrong with you, you can come in that same
That
day.
helps.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily essential,
Okay.
but it's preferable.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So,
I mean, I, on occasion, in a couple of things, have raised prices and take stuff away. So it's just like supply and demand.
right. So what if you don't have, Dan, what if you don't have the supply, right? I mean, there is a positioning element to this as well.
Yeah. Well, so you can do the positioning without the supply.
Right.
That requires bigger brass balls. That's just,
Which is part of that stuff,
That's
right? Yeah.
But it's better to have the supply.
Sure.
See, if your marketing act is together
Right.
and you have enough flow, which is fixable in every business if you don't have it, you have enough flow, it's easier to have brass balls.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And also, if you fully monetize, so if you're using all of this.
All of this, right.
So every customer is more valuable to you. It's easier to have brass balls because you don't need as many new ones all the time. So if you lose 10% and you got to maintain 1,000 customers at your place in order to make a living.
Right.
And your price strategy is going to lose 100. You think, oh my God, how hard is it to get 100?
Right.
How long is it going to take me to get 100?
Right.
How expensive is it going to be to replace the 100? Right.
Right.
If you need 1,000, if you need 100, and you're going to lose 10, it's the same ratio.
Right.
But you say to yourself, well, 10, I can get 10.
Right.
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 I can replace 10.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to growth hack number 11, which is marketing more aggressively to our best buyers, which of course takes into account list segmentation. Most business owners, as you know, treat all of their customers, all of their clients, all of their patients exactly the same way. Why is this such a huge error?
Well, it's pretty stupid because they're not the same. They're not the same in terms of differential value to you. And if you have any history at all, if you've been in business for any period of time at all and you've never calculated it, you can certainly go calculate it, and you can take every customer record and see what they've been worth, and you're going to profoundly see
Right.
that usually a small number are worth more per person than a large number. So they're not the same to you in value. They're not the same to you behaviorally. They're usually not the same statistically, demographically. So treating them all the same is like foolish right? It makes no sense. Further, treating them all the same leaves an enormous amount of money on the table because it forces you to drive everything to the lowest, to build it for the lowest level.
Right.
Every story has to be acceptable to the lowest caliber of customer you have. Every promotion is built for the lowest caliber of customer you have. Every price is built for the lowest caliber of customer you have. So you're wasting all the value of those that are higher in caliber up the spending pyramid, the ability to buy, the willingness to buy. You're leaving all that behind. And even with no deliberate intent, you will attract some customers who have higher interest, higher willingness to buy. Willingness may mean frequency, may mean size, whatever, and higher ability to buy. Even if you don't make any, if you were thoughtless about it, it will happen to you automatically. And if you don't differentially build offers for them and opportunities for them, you are only, they can only take advantage of what you put in front of them.
Right.
Right? And often you even leave them so restless and underserved.
They go somewhere else.
They go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong room.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So how does somebody determine what, in order to segment my list, I need to know what data to collect. How do I know what are some of the different things I should be collecting? How do I figure that out for my own business?
Let me give you the short answer
Okay.
instead of the long answer.
Okay.
Do you have the long answer in the kit?
We do not have the long answer in
Okay.
the kit.
Well, I'm going to give you the short answer anyway.
Okay.
So the short answer, if you go to the doctor tomorrow for a routine physical, and the doctor comes back to you and says, you may have XYZ, and we need to run a bunch of tests. So we're going to check you in the hospital for 2 days, and we're going to stick a tube up your butt and down your throat and in your ear, and we're going to run some blood. Okay. So most people will say yes. Big mistake. Right? The question they have to ask, and make sure they get an answer to, is what are the different things the test could show? What are the possible outcomes of the test? And for each of the negative outcomes, what are the possible treatments? Because if you're not willing to do any of the treatments, why go through the tests?
Right.
And by the way, your answer might be different at your age than my age,
Right.
and it might be different at my age than somebody 20 years older than I.
Right.
So the same thing is true of data. So the way you figure out what data you want is by figuring out what data you're willing to use.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, for example, if that restaurant would determine through their customer base that there were 16 different customer profiles, and if they created 16 different content tracks, message tracks, and offer tracks for those 16 different kinds of customers, they could increase prices by 20% and they could increase frequency by 20%. Would they be willing to run 16 separate marketing tracks? If the answer is no, screw it, don't get the data, right? If you're not going to run a real sophisticated birthday campaign, don't get the data.
Right.
Why? But if you are, do everything you can to get the data.
Yeah.
Okay? Ask 26 times, pay everybody who has an opportunity to ask $10 to get it. I mean, you know, so you work backwards from, if I had this data, how would I use it?
Sure.
Am I willing to do that?
Right.
If I'm not willing to do it, no point in getting it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of businesses have a bunch of statistical data, by the way, that they never make any use of, and when pushed, make it click.
Right.
They are unwilling to use.
Right.
Why are you even collecting it? Well, my accountant runs that report every month. Well, if you're not going to use it, have your accountant do something else.
Right.
Let's get some data we're going to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The longer answer is, again, you look at the back end of your business, you look at the front end of your business, right? And you look at, is there behavioral? So let's take behavioral data, Okay? So if you look at behavioral data, many businesses would have some people who only come in on special occasions. 5 years, the only time they've been in here is their birthday and their wedding anniversary. Okay? We have some people who only come in during the winter months. Probably means they live someplace else during the summer, if we don't know that, right? There's some people who, and I could keep doing this, right? So that's behavioral data that is available in most businesses if they got it.
Right.
They may never have backed it out
Right.
and looked at it. Now again, if you're not willing now to build a special occasion campaign for these people, okay, and create higher price packages for special occasions and get a limo to drive them to and from the place in and et cetera, don't get the data.
Right.
But if you would be willing to do that, see if that data exists.
Right.
If it does, it's really, really valuable data.
Right. So, you know, at GKIC, one of the things that we do, because we use Infusionsoft, and there's other email programs that you can use. So you can segment lists not only by buyers. I think people are thinking, well, I'm going to just segment my buyers or my
by
prospects.
leads, if you have leads.
Yeah, by leads, but you could also do it more sophisticated by click, right? So if the person clicks on this certain thing, that indicates that they're interested in this, and then they'll go into a completely different list, a completely different tract. And again, it's very, very powerful. And again, it's done automatically. So there's really no reason for not doing that. One of the things that we're going to do this year for Info Summit is we have a high rollers list. So we have people who came to previous Info Summits who spent X amount of dollars, which is way more than the norm. So we're going to treat these people like high rollers, like you would do at a casino.
Of course.
Right? Because we want them in the thing. The question at GKIC is, well, what if the other members find out? I don't care if the other members.
Spend more.
Spend more. This guy's a high roller.
You can get on the list.
You can get on the high roller list. Right.
No problem.
Yeah. So it's not.
It's the answer at the casino.
Right.
How do I get a comp? You're not gambling enough.
Right.
Right? You're making minimum bets.
Exactly.
You got to bet at least a couple $100 a hand.
Right.
And you got to have 10 grand at play.
Right.
And then I can go get you some comps, Dave.
Right.
Okay, I get it.
I get it. Right. It's pretty straightforward. So can you give us some examples of businesses that have used list segmentation effectively?
Yeah, the ones everybody sees.
Okay.
Whether they know it or not. Credit card companies, very sophisticated. Okay, so credit card companies are using all sorts of list segmentation to put a credit card offer in front of you as a new person. You and I may live in the same community next door to each other. We're going to get two different offers based on all the behavioral data.
Sure.
You know, charities, well-run charities segment a lot. Okay? So on the front end, okay, so let's take something like Happy Trails Animal Rescue. If they go rent lists, they're going to rent animal charity lists. But there's dog lists, there's horse lists, there's cat lists, there's whatever. Okay, so they can't really use the dogs and the cats because they do farm animals. Okay. The horse lists, they damn well better make sure that the picture on the front
is of the right horse.
Is of a horse,
right?
Not of a cow or a pig.
Right.
If they're going to go to Farm Bureau donors or subscribers, let's show them the pigs.
Right.
Let's vary what we put in front of people. So here's something daring to talk about.
Okay.
So I do some pro bono work for a food bank, and local. And a lot of the food banks get pre-done marketing from an agency that does lots and lots and lots of food banks.
Sure.
Okay? So I started having this conversation with them a year and a half ago. So they get a pre-done newsletter, you know, that's somebody like Sean Buck's company,
right,
but is only doing food banks, right? And 2/3 of it is standardized, and 1/3 of it is drop-in, right? So the cover of this newsletter every month has, and this is risky to talk about, but it's profoundly important, it has little black kids and little Mexican kids and little Asian kids on it, and black families and Mexican families and Asian families, which makes perfect sense, by the way, except for the fact, who are the donors?
Yeah.
I said, who are the donors? Who's your donor? Well, you know, it's grandma, rich grandma from the suburbs. Well, it'd be a good idea once in a while at least to show her a white family with kids that look like her grandkids who are going hungry, instead of people who look like she only sees them if she watches reruns of The Cosby Show.
Right.
Okay? She lives out here in Shaker Heights.
Right.
She doesn't go downtown Cleveland. I'm sorry, but she doesn't.
Right.
It's just the way things are.
Right.
Okay? So if you want to amp this up, show grandma her grandkids.
Right.
That's what you want to do.
Right.
Okay? Just, you can imagine the reaction, because, you know, they're all liberals and they're
Right.
all sensitive and they're
Right.
all, you know, and so one person at this meeting is thoroughly PO'd at me and two others are shell-shocked, and, you know, so it takes like a year before they run this experiment. Guess what?
What happened, Dan?
50% bump
Wow.
in response
Wow.
and a 25% increase in size of donation.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
you may not like it,
Right.
but so smart charities do it though, okay? Casinos,
Right.
absolutely. List segment up the yin yang, okay? The best segmentation is, of course, customized offers for customized segments of lists, or even per customer.
Per customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, if your customer value is high enough and your transaction value is high enough, why wouldn't you customize an offer just for Bob, right? Which takes your high roller one more level
One
up.
more level up, yeah.
Because you may have one super high roller who's
Right.
a big NASCAR fan.
Right.
Well, what can we do for him that is NASCAR?
Sure.
Because that's his thing.
Sure.
Right? And so internally, you can definitely do it. And externally, there's all sorts of data. You can back out of your data and back into guys like Richard Seppala,
Right.
ROI. You know, they're really good at backing it out of your data and backing it into available data.
Right.
Craig Simpson's very good at finding it in mailing lists, you know, and so forth. So this is about, again, fully monetizing your assets, your customers, by who they are, how they behave, what their interests are, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, in the Growth Hacks Toolkit, you're going to find a checklist of all the different ways you can segment your list, and not all the different ways, but a ton of different ways you can segment your list, and ideas about how to market to the different segments more effectively. Okay, Dan, last but not least is Growth Hack number 12. We've made it to 12, which is what I call Touch Me Baby, which is more frequent touches, not with leads, not following up with leads, but with customers, clients, or patients. And this dovetails beautifully with list segmentation.
Yeah, so first of all, again, because all the way back to the beginning, most business owners are thinking all about new customers and taking the customers they have for granted, and they're horribly reluctant to spend money on existing customers and so forth. But by and large, the more frequently you arrive, the more frequently you engage, the more present you are, the more business you do, unless you are either boring or abusive.
Right, okay.
So the boyfriend who shows up with great regularity every night, but shows up drunk at 2 o'clock in the morning and may throw her around, is not particularly welcome, right? So the frequency in that environment is not perceived as a good thing. And the same thing is true as a marketer. If you're only doing booty calls, and you're only showing up when you want money, and you're a little abusive about it, frequency will not work to your advantage, right? If you're deadly dull, right, you are the boyfriend who is going to grow up to be an accountant.
Okay, so
there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
No, accountants
There
just
we
dropped
go.
off.
You may not be real welcome either, right? So, yeah, well, Michael Gray won't refund no matter what, but we may lose a few more. But unless you're boring or abusive, then frequency, consistency, and constancy all matter a great deal. Now, one of the ways you can get more touches in is if you list segment and you communicate with different segments of your list differently.
Absolutely.
Right? So that gives you permission.
Sure.
It gives you opportunity.
Sure.
The other way you can communicate more without being perceived as a nuisance is if you do it with multiple media rather than one medium. So if you communicate only through email,
Right.
and you never do anything offline, you will wear out your welcome faster.
Sure.
If you arrive in a mailbox every day and you never do anything online, you will wear out your welcome faster. If you only push and don't drive to interesting things they can go see,
That's
play
right.
with, etc., you will wear out your welcome faster. If you only pull, if everything is about, now you got to go fetch this,
Right.
then you will wear out your welcome faster.
Yeah.
So again, Disney's very good at it. If you are a Disney timeshare owner, so list segmentation, you get a bunch of stuff only if you're a DVC Club member. If you're a D23 member, you get a bunch of stuff only if you're a D23 member. If you're a regular customer, you get a bunch of stuff only if you're a regular customer. If you're a multi-year visitor, you get stuff that single-year visitors don't get. So their level of communication with their best customers, who are now in everything I just named,
Right.
is very much like ours at GKIC. It is essentially daily. If you average it out,
Right.
it's daily. But it's because that person wants that level
Right.
of relationship.
Right.
And they are hardly ever abusive,
Right.
and they are rarely boring.
Right. Well, we talked about the boring aspect of it earlier, right? Things have got to be
I
entertaining.
mean, you just don't want to go, even if he'll pick up the tab, you just don't want to go out to dinner with the guy who, it wants to tell you the details of how he does colonoscopies every time you go to dinner,
Right.
unless you're a guy
Yeah.
who does colonoscopies too.
Right.
I mean, and so his wife has to have a big talk with him before dinner.
Right.
That's
That's exactly right. Listen, Bob.
read the paper today, dear, because
Right.
we need something to talk about other than how you do a colonoscopy,
Yeah.
or we're not going to have any friends.
Yeah.
And so, you can't be boring.
Yeah, so it was interesting as you were talking, I'm thinking about, there's this company, Penguin Magic, and I buy mentalism stuff. That's all I buy, right? So if there's a guy doing a lecture online, I'll buy that. And if you look at my buying history, right, that's all I've bought. I mean, that's it. Books, mentalism books, that's it, right? Because for people who don't know, mentalism is a branch of magic, right? That's the one that I'm interested in. And yet, I'm
You
thinking
get
about the
everything.
frequency. Right, I get everything. I mean, this is such a simple, if they just looked at it, and so that
Now,
does
they could-
annoy me.
Of course it annoys you. Now,
Right.
they could isolate you every once in a while for a really short, hard cross-sell try.
Right,
Okay?
right,
Is we see
Right.
all you've ever bought is mentalism.
right,
However, you might want this because,
Right.
okay, they could take a whack,
right,
but they're sending the same stuff to everybody.
right,
Okay, so they're failing to get all the money they could get from you,
right,
and at higher price points for
Absolutely.
some of it.
right. Well, mentalism, as you know, higher
Yes.
price points anyway.
Yes, but they're still leaving money on
Right.
the table, and they run the risk of annoying you because, in essence, they're being both boring and abusive.
Yeah,
They're being boring because they're feeding you a bunch of stuff in which you have no interest whatsoever.
Right.
Right? They're being abusive because they're hard selling. They're pushing you to buy things that you have clearly demonstrated.
Right.
You don't want, see, when the earlier question, the person that's queasy about selling.
Right.
Right? Well, about the only reason people have a visceral negative reaction to being sold is when someone is trying to sell them something they don't want.
Right.
They have no interest in.
right,
Right? People slam the door on Jehovah's Witnesses. Why? Because they've predetermined. They have no interest whatsoever in hearing this. And as soon as there's two people out there with a book, right?
that's it. Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
right? But we rarely have a negative reaction to being sold something in which we have and interest.
Yeah, I- absolutely. So, sticking with this topic for just a little bit, one of the things that most people don't do is, first of all, they don't send any kind of newsletter, let alone an email newsletter. But if they send an email newsletter, they're not doing a print newsletter. And we have shown over and over and over again that print, as far as the newsletter goes,
Of course.
trumps it. Why is that, and why is a print newsletter so effective to send to our list?
Because it's the closest thing to real media of any of the choices.
Okay.
And people grossly underestimate the differences in the way people react and respond to real media and non-real media. Okay? So when Glenn Beck was on Fox, his book factory was second to none. I think in his peak year he had 11 or 12 on the New York Times bestseller list, 4 or 5 at a time for 30, 40 weeks at a time, making millions and millions of dollars in royalties. The minute he exited Fox and went to his own internet TV network, whatever the hell that is,
Right.
okay? Last year, he managed to get one book onto the list for a few weeks.
Wow.
Bill O'Reilly, however,
Right.
who stepped right into the vacuum, okay? Bill had 9 New York Times bestsellers last year.
Last year?
Yeah, last year. Some of them now are still on the Times list. I think if you get a current Times list, 4 of the top 10 are Bill O'Reilly.
Wow.
They're selling in the millions of copies because Bill is on real TV.
Right.
Real print is the same. I told you I'm not going to name him, but I was telling you the story about a fairly famous entertainment personality who went through this 2-year buildup of his blog. He has 3 million readers.
Right. And podcasting, right?
A podcast,
Yeah.
blog and podcast. And he said that there's no bump in his book sales from when he was on local AM radio in LA. Well, local AM radio in LA, it's a big market and it's real media.
Right.
I don't know how to break the news to you. There's a difference.
Right.
And so people, when they subscribe to a newsletter and they get it in the mail and it comes with regularity, they pay a great deal of attention to it. When they get it by email, first of all, a bunch of it never even gets to them.
That's absolutely
Because
correct.
there's 412 spam filters
Right.
in the way. And when it does get there, see, here's the thing. It's how do they feel about this when they receive it, okay? Do they, oh, it's them again, right? Oh, ugh, more of the same.
Right.
I'm too busy now, right?
Right.
Or, oh boy,
Right.
I can't wait to open,
Right.
right? And that feeling is important. There's also a certain obligation you create when you deliver real print media, because they know you spent money to do it. Okay? They also know, they at least believe, the online stuff costs you nothing.
Right.
So, at least at 40 and above, there is a subconscious, if not conscious, response to obligation.
Sure.
Okay? I can tell you right now, Carla gets all kinds of email solicitations from charities, and she feels no compulsion. The $19 a month blanket thing comes on TV. She does not respond to any of that. She gets the mail from the starving Indians in somewhere with the free address labels
That's it.
in them. They got her because she feels obligated.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah.
Right? It works.
Yeah.
And so print media, newsletter or magazine, is entirely different. It's felt differently
Right.
than anything you can deliver online. That is not to say you shouldn't be doing a whole bunch of stuff online.
Oh,
I am not saying that.
Right.
But I, to the answer to your question, absolutely, is that it's felt differently, therefore it is responded to differently.
Yeah. Now, in the Growth Hacks Toolkit, there's an example of, it's actually copyright free, so you can use it, an example of a 1-month campaign. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because we're running up against the clock, but it involves a whole bunch of different things. This happens to be they're all themed. So this is an offer postcard that they get. Then they get a staying in touch with you postcard, which has cool quotes on it. There's an email that they get. There's a whole bunch of different things that they get, and it's over a 12-month period in different formats. And that's included in there. There's a 1-month campaign that you can just take in that you can use, and then you can model for other campaigns as well.